Ready.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Would everyone, well, first of all, welcome to the Howell Township Mayor and Council's public participation meeting. I'd ask that everyone please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask that everyone just please remain standing for a moment of silent observation in thought of the troops that defend this country all over the world. Thank you. Would you please read the opening statement?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on January 1st, 2007, by the faxing of a copy of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on January 1st, 2007, by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on January 1st, 2007. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 17:27. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room to the rear, they are to your immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton? Here. Mr. Howell?
Here.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Present.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mayor DeBella?
Here. Okay, Mr. Chernetsky, would you just overview for us the items that we have for consideration this evening, please?
Mayor, this is a public participation meeting, but we would, there are 3 items of business. One, we need to hear a presentation with respect to the Cool Cities tree planting grant that Mr. Panic will be providing for us. And we also have 2 items before you tonight. One is award of a contract for electrical work at the Bonham Fields, which I'll, just to give you a brief explanation on. Phase 1 of the Bonham program had a temporary electrical service, which was going to cost about $10,000 that we would then have to take down. And then a permanent electrical service would have been included with Phase 2. The reason being is that electrical is needed to get the pumps running, to start the irrigation system. But what we decided was that we would sort of not waste the $10,000 and see if we can do sort of like a Phase 1A and get the permanent electrical installed ASAP. And so we are now in, we have received a number of quotes. We found someone willing to do it, falls below the formal bid threshold, and we would ask council to consider award of a contract this evening so they can start ordering their parts. And then the second item is we've received word that our prosecutor would be resigning, and there is a resolution before you tonight for consideration of a replacement.
All right, before we get started, we're going to do Mr. Panic's presentation first. I think it's appropriate just to spend a moment. Yesterday, or was it the day before, there was a tragic episode that happened in our community. It really took the whole township by surprise, quite frankly. I got a number of phone calls and emails from residents who were very taken aback and concerned about the event. And while we have one of the safest communities in America, in fact, the 11th safest, just goes to prove that anything can happen anywhere. And we have a tight-knit community, and I'm certain that the people who suffered as a result of this event need them to have all of us keep them in their prayers. I do think it is certainly appropriate that we also say a great deal of thanks to the Howell Township Police Department, who responded professionally, admirably, in what was certainly a very difficult situation. And once again, the police department in this community distinguished themselves in the way that they handled the entire process. I got a phone call from the manager, as did all of the other members of the Township Council. I had reason to have to speak to the chief, as I was getting phone calls from reporters to comment on it, and thankfully the chief, which was no surprise, was well on top of everything, as was the entire Howell Township Police Department. So I just wanted to make certain we acknowledge the fact that it was a terrible tragedy, and it really is horribly unfortunate. At the same time, we are to be reminded that we are still a safe community when you look at the way that our police responded as quickly and as thoroughly as they did. So I just wanted to at least share that sentiment with the community. Mr. Panic, I think you're up first. Could you just tell us what it is you're presenting? And I think we've got about a 15-minute time window. Is that right?
Okay. Well, we'll try to make it a little less than that. Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm pleased to say that this past summer we were fortunate enough to receive a $25,000 grant. This is called a CSIP grant for the planting of trees. And the area that we picked was the Candlewood section, because we did a lot of tree removals and sidewalk replacements, curb replacement, because of the existing trees that were there. So because of what was there and did a lot of destruction, we did our homework and picked a variety of trees that in the future won't cause the same problems that we had in Candlewood. So one of the things that we decided to do is to set these trees back away from the road onto private property. So because of that, we are requiring an easement from the property owners to give us the opportunity to plant those trees so that they won't cause problems to the walks and roads, etc. So they do fill out a form, which we've worked with the engineering department to have those homeowners sign that. Also, during the summer, we had our shade tree commissioners, along with Kim Alvarez and myself. We went through the neighborhood of Candlewood, and we basically did the main thoroughfare, Salem Hill Road and Newberry. And we picked what we call boulevard trees. So they'll get the most effect when you drive through there, if you're a resident or if you just be passing through, would give us the most effect. But also, the other part of it is, and that was part of the grant, was that trees have to create some sort of a cooling effect into the neighborhood. So that was one of the other criteria, that we pick a type of tree that would give us some shade and some resistance to wind, etc. But anyways, we did pick these trees that we have the names, and we're going to show you some quick pictures. This is an overview of the neighborhood and the main area that we're going to be planting the trees. The purple is the road, and the yellow that you see are the trees that are going to be planted. Now, in all the areas, we did have a lot of trees that were existing, so you didn't need them in the whole entire area. Yeah. Yeah. Do we have the pictures of them? Okay. The trees that we picked, we have Triumph Elm. I'm going to just run through really quick. What I did is I picked trees that were medium growth trees, and some where we have the, because some areas still do have the telephone poles and electrical wires and such above ground. So this is one of the areas that is not underground. So we had to take that into effect. So we have that situation. We have low canopy trees that if 50 years from now, they still won't grow up into the trees. So one of the first ones we have is called Triumph Elm. We want to try to reintroduce elm trees back into Howell Township. The main tree we have are oaks, and that covers about 90% of Howell. So we've taken oak trees pretty much off of our list. Not that it's a bad tree, but if you have an insect or a disease, it affects 90% of the trees. So we don't want that. So now what we're trying to do is, for the next 15 or 20 years, we don't want to plant any oak trees. We have plenty of them. So the elm was a very good choice because it is now resistant. It's resistant to Dutch elm disease. It grows quite quickly, and it's got a great shape. Another one that we picked, the second one, is Sweet Shade Yellowwood. It's a native tree. It's one that I feel is very, very underused. And really, it's a beautiful tree when you're just looking at it with leaves and to fall color, but also we have the benefit of a flower. It has a lilac like flower that hangs down and it's quite fragrant. There are a few in Freehold Township, and I've had the opportunity to look at those as I drive around Freehold. I haven't seen any really good specimens in Howell at all. So we want to try to introduce them. Sweet gums, we have sweet gum, and the problem we have with sweet gums are they have those itchy balls, they call them, and they're all over the place. So the ones that we picked are seedless. And one of the reasons that you want this tree, because you do have some areas that are wet, and we need a wet site tree. So when we have a situation that we do have a wet site, we're going to be able to use this sweet gum. We're not going to use it in a lot of areas, but where we do have that situation, it'll come in handy. The next one is it's a horse chestnut. This is what it called. It's a ruby red, but it's more pink. It's got a very tall flower. When it's in bloom, you actually see all color. You don't see any leaves at all. You don't see any part of the tree except the flowers. It really is a quite beautiful tree. And one of the things that we're trying to get in the neighborhoods, again, is get a little more diversity as far as color goes. So instead of just looking at green leaves, we want to bring some color in. We have the next tree is pyramidal European hornbeam. And what that is, that grows very tight, kind of like a soldier, very tight in areas where we have wires, in areas that we do have a situation where we need a little more of a tighter canopy. We're going to have the ability to use this tree. Another smaller tree that's a very noticeable tree as far as its bloom, and that's the Chinese fringe tree. Another tree that we do not see used at all in Monmouth County. Most people don't know what it is, so for that reason, landscapers just don't use them because they just don't know anything about it. I've had the opportunity to use them in a lot of situations as a landscape architect. I've also had the opportunity to look at them in arboretums and in people's private properties, so they really are a magnificent tree. It grows quite quickly, and again, it's one of those that we're going to use under the power lines. Number 7 is the hedge maple. Again, it's a perfect tree for under the lines, a fast-growing tree, interesting tree. It has a great fall color. Constellation Rutgers dogwood. That's a new improved one developed by Rutgers University. It's a cross between the Chinese dogwood and our common dogwood. Most dogwoods have a lot of problems. This particular cross is not, so far, after 15 years of looking at it at Rutgers and testing it, they finally decided that it's a great tree to use in a residential landscape or as a street tree. They've tested it under a lot of situations, salt, etc., and it really is a beautiful tree. Great fall color. It has a wonderful, large, whitish pink flower. I've planted 15 of them right now on Aldridge Road. We had one of the builders put them in recently. So we'll have an opportunity, as you drive on Aldridge Road headed towards the park and ride, you look to the right, you'll see them. The second year is when you're going to see the best blooms. Last but not least, we are using magnolia butterflies. Magnolias are really wonderful trees. The ones that you see a lot of are the southern varieties, and they're white to pink. These are yellow. They're very fragrant, and there's probably 4 different yellow varieties. And the beauty of this is they come into bloom after chance of frost, and that's one of the shortcomings of magnolias. Half the time when they're in bloom, we have a little nippy night, you lose the bloom. So they're only in bloom for a day or two. With these yellow ones, they come into bloom after chance of frost. So you'll get to look at the flowers for a couple of weeks, and they really are magnificent. And that's all I got to say, unless anyone has any questions.
We just want you to be aware that the letters will be going out to the residents in that area requesting this temporary easement. Okay, and the easement's for a period of 2 years. It doesn't restrict them with doing anything on that property. The township just wants to make sure that the trees are growing properly. It is totally optional for them whether they get a tree or not. So these should be going out, I'm going to say probably within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. I also wanted to add in the value of these trees because most people don't know, and I think a lot of people were afraid they were going to be charged for the tree. The tree is free of charge to the residents in Candlewood, and the same thing as the street tree program with our shade tree fund. We will be providing a lot of the neighborhoods now where we do have gaps, the tree will be free of charge. Just so the council understands, a 2.5-inch to 3-inch tree planted in the ground is approximately $300. So that's the cost of the tree, the cost of digging the hole, putting it in, staking it, mulching it, and watering it the first time. You're looking at $300. And what we do ask the homeowners to partner with us, because they can't expect the township to go out there and water the tree in June and July. So I also will send out a flyer to each resident that gets a tree. It'll tell them about the care. It'll show them a picture of what the tree looks like 4 seasons. It'll show it in spring and the rest of the seasons, and it'll tell them something about the care. It'll also have our contact phone number if they have a question. And it really is pretty simple, but we do ask them just basically to water the tree for the first 2 seasons. After that, it's pretty much on its own. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Panic. Any questions from the council on this program?
Mayor, if I could, Mr. Schlegel, you said that if they give you this temporary easement, they're going to be allowed to do whatever they want on the property. It's just you want to put the tree in, but don't you want to restrict them from putting a mound of mulch around the tree or doing anything in that area where the tree is put for that time frame?
We, actually, just to let you know, we did have a presentation in that neighborhood in December.
December, early December.
And absolutely, Mr. Panic and the Shade Tree Commission will educate the homeowner on proper care for the tree. You're absolutely correct. They're not going to want, we're going to want it to be treated properly.
Okay.
Like I said, I will issue a little flyer, a little brochure. It'll show everything. It'll show the tree. It'll show every little aspect of it, including the mulch.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Excellent job, Mr. Panic.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to
Great work.
watching, seeing bloom over there.
Thank you, Mr. Panic. Okay, do we have the list of the public? Did somebody just, is that in the front? Somebody grab that? Did you get it, Mr. Nunziata? Sure.
Anybody else want to speak?
Thank you. If anyone else would like to be heard that didn't have a chance to sign the sheet, just simply raise your hand when we get through those that have signed up. The first person is Mr. Frank Pincus. Mr. Pincus, come on up. Welcome.
Traffic, the roads are bad. No? How many we have?
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a point of
You
order.
want to do
Yeah.
the appointment first? That's fine, okay. Would you mind, Mr. Pincus, there is a piece of business. We try and get to the public piece first, but I think we have a potential professional that's here, and rather than have that person sit for the whole meeting. I understand that we had a resignation of the municipal prosecutor. Is that right, Mr. Chinesky? We have a memo, I guess it's in here. I haven't gone through this evening's material. Can you fill us in on what the situation is?
Sure. I received a letter today from Mr. Crisanti advising me that he regrets that he is resigning from his position as prosecutor. There is a conflict he has with another community that he was not able to resolve. He thought he might be in a position to do so, but it would not be possible, and therefore we are now in a position to appoint a new prosecutor.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, what do you mean he had a conflict with another something that had to do with Howell Township?
No, a scheduling conflict.
A scheduling conflict?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm under the impression that we're poised to make an appointment tonight. Is that accurate?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think the first thing we need to do is accept Mr. Crisanti's
We do.
resignation.
So if someone would like to make a motion to accept his resignation, we can proceed.
So moved, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion. We need a second.
Second?
Any additional comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, so I'm under the impression, or at least it appears as if we're about to make an appointment, so I'll turn it over to the council for whatever your pleasure is.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we appoint John Rehacek as municipal prosecutor for the remainder of this year.
Okay, we have a motion, we need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or remarks?
Mayor, I have a conflict, and I need to step down on this appointment.
Okay. Any other comments? I guess just in the spirit of candor, I see Mr. Rehacek is here, and I'm certain he's a fine attorney and a fine professional, so my comments are strictly business. I don't know how we came to the conclusion that we're ready to make an appointment, since the council as a whole hasn't had a chance to deliberate on it. So I'm certain there must have been some sidebar discussion about it. I only found out about it today. I was on the phone with the manager on something unrelated, so maybe there's been some telephonic discussion about it, but I guess my concern is we have certainly a policy, if you will, if not an ordinance, that suggests that these situations go out to bid, and I think that this person did bid. Perhaps they were one of the original bidders, and that could be fine. But I guess my concern is we didn't even review the township attorney, the public defender, or the municipal prosecutor's credentials by way of the interview process to begin with. So I'm sure Mr. Rehacek is probably more than amply qualified and has probably done this before. I just know that there's been a lot said about the need to put these things out to bid, to invite people to participate in a process, to solicit professionals, and to go about this in a very thoughtful, transparent way. And knowing that has been the mantra, I'm just concerned that we're not either revisiting and reopening this up to other bidders. If Mr. Grisanti had a conflict, maybe there were others that had conflicts that don't have conflicts now. So I'm just wondering, when did we come to the conclusion, since there hasn't been a council meeting, at least none that I've been at, when this would have been talked about under the provisions of what the Sunshine Law would require? So I sort of asked that in general, because I don't know how we could have come to this conclusion since there hasn't been a meeting.
We haven't come to a conclusion yet, Mayor.
Well, there's been at least a nomination, so I don't even know how we nominated anybody when we haven't talked about anybody. So I sort of asked that as a rhetorical question, because I honestly don't know. I got the call from Mr. Chernietsky today that there was a resignation.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Please, go right ahead.
Mr. Rehacek is one of several attorneys who bid in accordance with our our solicitation for bid proposals back in November and December. That was only 5-6 weeks ago when we made the appointment of Mr. Grisanti. I think Mr. Rehacek was on a short list of final candidates for a number of us. Unfortunately, Mr. Grisanti can't do it. There's court tomorrow. When I found out this morning that Mr. Grisanti was no longer going to be with us, I immediately suggested to the town manager that I would like to nominate Mr. Rehacek, and I asked Mr. Cherniecki to have a resolution prepared so that we could get on with the business of the town, including prosecuting tomorrow.
Look, I think your statement is right on the mark. I don't have a problem with it. I guess my concern is I'm certain we could have found someone to substitute tomorrow, since we never interviewed any of these candidates. So he may have been on somebody's short list, but we went through a pretty methodical process for all of the other professionals, but we didn't on this one. And so, since we had the opportunity, I just thought we would have had a chance to maybe even revisit the other people that didn't get selected the first go-around. Maybe there was somebody in there that someone else would have liked to have had an opportunity to discuss. So I guess that's really my only concern from a process perspective. I mean, it's council's pleasure to appoint whoever they so choose. I think it's a bit of a contradiction that we didn't talk about it and go through the interview process the way we did with every other professional.
Mayor, I believe the ordinance, or Mr. Bongiovanni, could you make it clear? The ordinance reads that we have to take the bids and go through them as a body, correct?
Yeah, I think that you would, from what I understood, there was a process that took place in November and December, and various professionals and resumes were vetted, and especially the ones that there was a need that the township business continue, the judicial officers, and that they be appointed on January 1st. and that's what happened, and I assume the same priority need is here. It's not like the bond counsel one that we haven't appointed yet.
Yeah, I don't have a problem that we're not acting within within what the law requires. My concern is there was an acceptance of a number of proposals in November, but for whatever reason, it was decided that we wouldn't meet with certain professionals, that the three primary attorney jobs, and we were, at least Ms. Showmaker and I think, were directed to conduct our own telephonic interviews with the individuals that we thought might be appropriate for those positions. And in deference to the council, I respect the fact that they need to be comfortable with professionals and the people that they're going to work with, and I have no issue with that. They have the majority, and I candidly don't have a problem with it. But we didn't have an opportunity to go through an interview, and certainly this is not of the same magnitude. This is significantly more important than bond counsel. But what we could have done alternatively is we could have had a holdover if we didn't have time to do the interviews in November, and maybe for a couple of weeks had the people that were in those spots at least fulfill those obligations until such time as all of the interviews were conducted. If we're going to be consistent and we want to take this higher road, which I completely agree with, then I think we need to do it all the time. And we can't selectively pick and choose when we're going to interview people and when we're not going to interview people. Because in my judgment, it really begs the authenticity and the transparency of the process. Now, I'm just one vote, and I've said my piece, but I think that if we're going to go through and interview professionals for positions like this, particularly a paid position of this nature, which qualifies for benefits and pension, that there should be a more thorough vetting and a more significant review of all of the applicants. Maybe at the end of that process, Mr. Rahicek, who, again, I attest, I'm sure, is a more than competent attorney, maybe he would have wound up being the one that was selected. But since we didn't go through and interview the others, we'll never know. At least I'll never know. And so I want to be upfront and candid with the council, as I told them I would be. I'm going to vote no respectfully to the candidate. I'm certain he'll do a fine job in his position, but I just feel if we're going to have a process, we need to be consistent with the process, we need to stick to the process, and we can't be selective about the process. And that's it. Any other comments?
May I respect what you say? And the same ordinance was in place in 2005 and in 2006 when I was in the minority. We didn't interview one person. Not one professional that was hired for Howell Township did we interview. No. I didn't get to see any of them. So I'm very comfortable with the process. We did instruct at the time, all of us decided to do telephone interviews because we didn't have any more days to spend interviewing people. And we all suggested make a short list, do telephone interviews. I personally called Mr. Rahacek and spoke to him. I think the other council members did. I assumed you had too, sir. I guess not. But I had followed up with what we had spoken about, which was to do telephone interviews. And I'd like to call the vote.
Yeah, I think just for the record, that may have been what was suggested as the process. I wanted to see all the candidates, and I went on record at the time saying we can't get any due diligence out of a telephone interview when you don't have the benefit of having talked to everybody else. And the only comment I would say, and I respect all your comments, is it can't just be do as I say, not as I do.
Mayor, excuse me, point of order, I believe
Yeah,
the gentleman called the
respectfully,
question.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have to vote on the call of the question.
Well, the last time I checked, I still run the meeting. And I'll let someone know, particularly a professional, when we're going to recognize them. And there was a request to call the question, and I will call the roll when I'm finished with my statement.
I wasn't suggesting that you, Mr. Mayor, have to do what I'm saying.
Yes.
I was reminding Mr. Mayor that I thought that was what I was supposed to do as a parliamentarian, that the call to question was there, and that proper parliamentary procedure is that should be voted on next.
Okay, we'll have a call to question. Go ahead, roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Abstain.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
No. And for the record, I guess the next time we want to cut someone short, just the way to do it would be to call the question. I've never done that in all the time I was on the council or as the mayor, and I would just respect that we all are respectful of one another, that when someone has a statement to make, let's have them had an opportunity to make their statement, so we don't rush things along and try and cut off a debate that may make some people feel uncomfortable, because it's more than just, don't do as I say, do as I do.
I don't
Mayor,
feel
Mayor, if I
uncomfortable.
could for a minute, please, I believe you did exactly call for a question at the planning board meeting this past Thursday when Mr. Bathgate asked for a special meeting for the planning board. That was to quell any other discussion on his ability to have that special meeting. You called the question.
Well, since we're not at a planning board meeting, we're at a council meeting, I talked about in the time that I was a councilman and the time that I've been mayor, but I do appreciate you paid such close attention to my voting record. What's next, Mr. Czerniecki?
Mayor, if I may. Excuse me. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
One quick question for, so that we don't come to this crossroads again for our township attorney. Mr. Bongiovanni, since it was brought to our attention that Mr. Grisanti had a conflict, I have one quick question. I'm cleaning out papers from Town Hall, which I have a multitude of boxes, and I come across a letter that came from, believe your office, sometime when Mr. Walsh was running for election the first time, where you said that you represented him as his attorney. Just so that we don't come to this road, this juncture, is that a conflict of interest? Is that a problem, you being the township attorney and you being his personal attorney?
If you're referring to, I was representing a campaign,
Correct.
and I don't believe that's a conflict from, that I represented his campaign in 2005 for the
Okay.
one limited purpose, that you were also involved, and also the
Correct.
mayor was involved.
That's the
in
letter, I happened to see that letter, and I never even brought
Yeah,
to mind
that the
until I
mayor-
went through
yeah,
it.
That the mayor and you were also involved in that letter.
Right.
That didn't result in any litigation. It didn't result in anything other than the letter.
But I was just wanting to make sure that,
I
don't
believe
want
that
to,
you
I don't
had
want
a
us to...
conflict in this case because Mr. Rahachik is still your personal attorney.
That's correct.
If he was not your attorney, if he was, say, your attorney, say, a year ago, you could have voted for him or against him.
Right.
Is that,
On parliamentary issues, in the future, it's not just, we don't always have to look at that Robert's Rules of Order book, which is extremely difficult for even experienced parliamentarians to remember each provision of it. The administration provisions of Howell's ordinance provides for special rules, which are basically from Robert's Rules of Order. And it says rules of debate. Section 2-5, 10, small a. Questions under consideration. When a question is presented and seconded, it is under consideration, and no motion shall be received except to adjourn or to lay on the table, to postpone or amend until the question is decided. So if you wanted to prevent, like, say, the call, the question, the only thing that would do that would be if you made a motion to adjourn or postpone, something like that. So there is a procedure, and if we want to follow it, you know, we have to go by that, or else it's chaos, you know?
yeah, I appreciate your comments, and I regularly carry my Robert's Rules of Order with me for just that reason. And in fact, there's a specific chapter on the rules of debate, which I've reviewed at length, and it goes into detail. For example, when a member of the assembly, if you will, from the dais would like to be recognized, they would ask their question through the chair, which routinely never happens. But
I
that,
beg
if we're
to
going to,
differ.
Mrs. Dalton, I take that back. Mrs. Dalton happens to be most professional and traditionally does that, as has Mrs. Showmaker historically. Members must obtain the floor to be recognized. Rarely does that happen. Debate must be germane to the motion. I've chaired this meeting for many, many, many years, and it has at times, in fact, not been necessarily germane. Speakers must, I could go on. I appreciate your being familiar with Mr. Bongiovanni. I think we want to stick to Robert's rules, and I've certainly done my best to become rather fluent in them. And I think the only point I'm making is that, in my judgment, when the topic gets to be uncomfortable, I hope that it won't be a natural reaction to call the question. In the case of the planning board decision, there had been debate for approximately 40 minutes, which in my judgment was fairly thorough, even though we're not even at a planning board meeting. I appreciate your role, I respect it, and I appreciate your
I
assistance on these
appreciate
points.
it. That's what I'm trying to do, and
I know that.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, what's next, Mr. Chernietsky?
Mayor, we're asking council to,
Mr. Hychik, would you like to be sworn in this
Well,
evening?
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
don't believe we've actually voted.
We did.
We did.
We voted.
We voted, no, we
We voted for
in
Mr.
favor of
Hychik.
Mr. Rahacek?
You did. It was 3-1.
Congratulations, Mr. Rahacek.
Mr. Hychek, congratulations, sir. Welcome to certainly the township team. Would you like to be sworn in this evening? I know there's several people here who are able to do it, or the judge could do it tomorrow in court. It's whatever your pleasure is, sir. Now's a good time? You get to be on TV. Why don't you come on up? Who would you like to swear in? Mrs. Dalton, Mr. Bongiovanni?
The Bible?
There you go. Okay. Do we have the, I think we have the Bible. It's coming. Is there someone with you you'd like to bring up? She deserves the recognition. Congratulations.
She's going to be on TV.
And repeat after me. I, John Rahacek,
I, John Rahacek,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people. So help me God.
under authority of the people, so help me God.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will impartially and justly perform all the duties of the office of municipal prosecutor. I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will impartially and justly perform
that I will impartially and justly perform
all the duties of the office of municipal prosecutor
all the duties of the office of municipal prosecutor
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Okay, Mr. Chernietsky, what's next? Let's just finish one other piece of business and we'll go to the public.
Mayor, for your consideration is a award of a contract in the amount of $28,750 to Municipal Maintenance Company for the installation of the electrical system that would run the irrigation system at the bottom fields.
Does everyone have a copy of this resolution? Yes? Any questions? Well, first of all, I'd ask for someone to make a motion, and we'll open up the debate. Is there a motion to accept this bid?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Deputy Mayor. Under comments or remarks, any questions for Mr. Chernietsky? Ms. Dalton?
This is the lowest bidder?
These were actually quotes. It was under the bid threshold, and it was the lowest quote. I apologize that that tabulation is not attached to your package. I'll make sure it's in your packet, but it was the lowest quote we've received.
Any other questions from the council?
Have we done business with this company before, Mr. Chinesky?
I don't believe we have.
Okay.
For the record, this is not one of the contracts that was under $17,500, so they had to provide all the disclosures about non-participation in elections, et cetera, and that's attached to their bid, and it's attached to the paperwork you have, to the resolution.
Any other comments or remarks? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Is there any other official business, Mr. Chancellor, before the public?
No, sir.
Okay. We're going to pick up where we were. Mr. Pincus, our apologies. Welcome. Come on back up. If you just please introduce yourself, name and address for the record.
Frank Pincus, Ketchum Road,
Good evening,
I
Mr.
hope
Pincus.
this will be a little more positive. than
Could you
what
pull
we-
your microphone a little closer, Mr. Pincus?
I hope this will be a little more positive. I mentioned I spoke to speak on the budget. If you'll indulge me for half a minute. For the
Go ahead,
last
sir.
2 years, I've been renovating a 200-year-old house in the township, and I think I'm all done. And I think I've dealt with every inspector this township has. Every single one of them has been unbelievably professional and helpful, and you hear horror stories, and these guys could not have been better to deal with. It's just something I think you people should hear. You hear the complaints, you got to hear some good stuff, too.
Wonderful.
Please.
Okay, trying to save you guys some money, which means save me money. One of the things that I hear over and over, and I don't come to the meetings, but I religiously watch 77.
So you're the one.
The one, the other one. Recreation's a big thing here in the township. More fields, more facilities, more of whatever for the kids. There's a field on West Farms Road, the northwest corner possibly, belongs to Monmouth County Park System. The park system will not give you, loan you, lease you the land to do anything. However, they could do something. It's, I'm going to guess 10 acres, flat as a table, right next to the Manasquan River on West Farms. I don't know what the mechanism is, but maybe you could convince them to providing a field here in Howell.
Mr. Chernetsky, maybe to Mrs. Schlegel, if you don't mind, sir, she might be more familiar with the geography. Are you familiar with this area, Mrs.
It's
Schlegel?
where they have the little weather station, right next to the river. Heading from Route 9 toward 524, it would be on the right-hand side, right before the Manasquan.
On West Farms? I really have no, I don't
Mr.
know
Nunziata,
where
are you
it's at.
familiar with the area? Could you give us a comment on, is that county property?
This is the first I'm hearing that it is, but there is like a little parking lot area adjacent to it. So certainly we can look into it. I know the area he's referring to, so we can explore that.
Okay. Mr. Panic, you're a tree expert. I think he's our tree expert.
I also work for the county. I'll verify that it's county property.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Panic. So it looks like it's county property.
It is.
Your idea is a good one. Can we more definitively maybe contact Mr. Ketchum and any additional information we need? And if it's
Mr.
not being
Pincus.
used, what did I
He
say?
lives
Mr.
on
Ketchum.
Ketchum.
Jeez, I'm sorry, Mr. Pincus.
Close enough.
Close enough.
Sure, can you just, Mr. Pincus, before you leave, can you leave your contact information
We have it
with me,
right,
please?
I'll
Oh,
pass
okay.
this back over to
Great,
you.
thank you.
What else, Mr. Pincus? Anything else for us?
Next item to save us some money. Every time I see a township truck go by my house, or vehicle, it says Township of Howell, Department of. When I've looked at previous year's budgets, I see every department here buying trucks, tractors, lawnmowers, plows, and whatever. Our neighboring township of Freehold, I understand, has one set of everything. The same truck that plows the street past the school can go through the school. It doesn't have to be a separate piece of equipment. The same lawnmower that cuts for one can cut for the other. Has to save a ton of money. And with all due respect to you guys and every previous council, you want to see how a township is run, go to Freehold.
I agree.
They really do a great job, and this is one of the things they do. It would cut down on equipment. Eventually, it would cut down on supervisory personnel, because now you have one big supervisor and a bunch of underlings instead of a bunch of big supervisors and underlings. Has to be a big cost saver. And the last and least popular, there's an awful lot of really, really nice programs here in Howell. Wherever you look, there's something going on for the young, for the old, for everybody. And these are nice, and everyone I've seen or heard of is really very well run. But I know in my own home, if I have X amount of dollars and there's something I really want and I can't afford it, I don't do it. And maybe these well-meaning people that want everything, every once in a while, they have to be told no. It won't get you guys votes, but it's doing the right thing. And I'm not picking or pointing fingers at any one particular area. I don't want to get stoned and feathered or tarred and feathered or whatever else. But looking around, we don't always have to get a Cadillac. No, a Chevy's okay sometimes too. That's all I have to say.
We
Thank you.
appreciate your comments, Mr. Pincus. Drive safely. Thank you.
Mr. Smith didn't put you up to that, did he?
I may pronounce this incorrectly, and I apologize if I do. Eugene? Sipke. Oh, you saved me. Thank you, Mr. Sipke. The C is silent, huh?
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Sipke. If you just give us your full name and address for the record, please.
Eugene, can you hear me? Eugene Sipke,
Okay.
444 Adelphia Road, Howell.
Thanks for coming up.
Good evening. I'm here to hopefully make you aware of something if you're not already. And hopefully you can help. I'm hoping you can. On February 1st, approximately 4:30 in the afternoon, a car came down Adelphia Road, was unable to negotiate the turn at on and near Our House Restaurant. Went through Our House Restaurant property, came 2 feet from hitting my neighbor's home, went through a set of bushes and across my front yard and crashed into a tree and flipped over, and the person had to be rescued. Now, not more than a few minutes, my kids were out in that exact spot. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old who are just kids, and they don't, while I don't allow them to be unsupervised in the front yard, and I've established a buffer area between where I don't allow them to go any closer to the road, which is approximately 25 feet. This car well surpassed that, what I thought was a safe distance from the road. My one son is autistic, so he doesn't always pay attention all the time. Now, granted, you know, balls fly out into places where they shouldn't go, and kids are kids sometimes. But this is becoming a repeated problem. Just a year before, another car crashed into my mailbox. And I've been told by the Howell Township Police that this turn is quite hazardous. In fact, coming out of Catcham Road, there's accidents quite often. And another man on Mother's Day crashed into the telephone pole across the street, again, was unable to negotiate the turn or whatever, and he almost died. There's been head-on collisions and just numerous spin-outs, and I want to make you all aware of that. I want to know if there's something that can be done, either lowering the speed limit or flashing warning signs or something.
Certainly, Mr. Janeski, we know it's a county road. What, 524, obviously, what's your understanding of what we can do there and your
Well,
recommendations?
First thing I'll do is I'll request a traffic incident history, and then...
There is an extensive one.
Okay. We'll look at that, and if you go on our website, under the eGov section, we have the newly published neighborhood traffic calming policy guidelines, which kind of lay out what options we have for different types of roads. And that is something that can be initiated either by the town engineer or the traffic safety division if they see a trend in terms of incidents, or by the neighborhood itself. So perhaps what you and I can have a conversation in the next few days to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, just,
It's a county road, though, I believe, isn't
Right.
it? Is there still things we could probably do?
There's still things that we can do. We're
Yeah.
limited because it's a county road, but at least we can be your advocates.
I understand. Yeah, I was hoping that, you know, in addition to petitioning the county, possibly, if there's anything additional that could be done. And, you know, one of the hazardous areas is where Catcham Road, which is a township road, is a problem because you cannot pull out of that road either way. And it's, you know, that is township. So I was, you know, hoping and praying that something could be done. I've been told, you know, I was shocked to hear that the county would not do something unless someone dies first. I'm hoping that
Well, that's certain.
my family or nobody else's family has to be that sacrifice.
Sometimes we have information they don't have that we can provide to them.
I'm hoping there's
Mayor, if I can comment.
Please, Mr. Truman.
Maybe it's, one fortunate thing for us now is that we have a school on each end of that maybe we can use as a negotiating tool to have the speed lower down there. I will tell you that it's a much-needed conversation with the county in that area, because what they did on the improvements there have actually created more of a hazard
Right.
for ongoing traffic coming from the Wall to Route 9.
Right, going west.
Yes, and I don't know that
And east.
we've addressed that situation, but I think it's incumbent upon the township, because
Right.
that is a township road that ties into that we do, have a conversation with the county in regards to that respect.
Right. I mean, just adding one more thing, like I did say, we had just left a few minutes before this happened. My boys were out there in that spot, and this was what I considered a safe area. I mean, had this person not hit the tree and broke the tree down, they would have plowed into the fourth property and hit that person's house. I mean, I don't understand how someone could be going that's beside the
Yeah.
point. How someone could be going so fast to go through 3 properties and not even stop. It had been 500 yards.
It's bad, Ben.
And, that's right where we stand every day for the bus.
Well, Councilman Schumacher and I live on Camelot,
Okay.
not far, and I see it all. In the morning, sometimes it's backed up 15, 20, 30
Yeah.
cars now there at Ketchum Road.
Yeah. I mean, I keep my kids back, when people honk their horns and complain, I don't care, because we're just going to take that much longer to get to the bus. But want to make you aware of that.
I think the unfortunate thing in that, and the way you handle that with your children, I think is, I wouldn't change, because, normal traffic calming things or any sort of regulations we do assumes that rational people respond to their environment, and
Right.
sometimes not all people act rationally, so they won't respond to anything we
Right.
might do.
I mean, I have photographs. I don't know if you're interested in looking at them of the
Sure,
after.
pass them around, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chunetsky will certainly do as he described, and
Have my bulldogs been on your property lately? They're my 2 bulldogs I found over there a couple times.
Nothing I'm aware of.
Just the other day, they were on 524.
Mr. Chunetsky, we have this gentleman's address, and he stepped away. We have the address information, so
Thanks.
after he gets that report history, we'll see to it we get back in contact with you. Happy to help. Thank you for your attention. I can see your boys won the Pinewood Derby, huh? One's holding the trophy in a little car, so it looks like they did well. Did you see has everyone seen these?
No, not the second one.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Sipak. Thank you. Mr. West, you're next, and I think you brought friends. Is that right? Would you gentlemen mind if we went, there's only a few other people, because I think we need a little more time with you gentlemen. Mrs. Smith.
Oh, wait a minute.
Thanks. Missed that. Mike. He can't hear.
Mrs. Smith's going to fool you all. She's going to be done in 2 minutes tonight. With the falling snow and the ice that's accumulating.
Unfortunately, I would have if I was only going to speak about what I intended to when I put my name down. But I have a lot of information about Eugene's problem.
Perhaps you could
It's
speak to
all
him
of our
off.
problem.
Maybe you could talk to him offline or fill the
I
manager
will,
in.
but
Good.
it might be helpful for all of you. Just some of it. Pauline Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. This spot, this curve has been a problem probably when they still had horses and wagons around here. But unfortunately, 40 years...
Ms. Smith, would you mind, they just need you to, they can't get you on the recorder. Could you maybe tilt up the microphone?
Sorry, guys.
Could we get Mrs. Smith to handheld? Would you mind? That might be easier, please. Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Mayor, I think that there might be problems with it.
Oh, there's problems with the handheld.
As long as they can hear me, I'm fine. I'll lean and talk right into the microphone. The first and worst, when I was in high school 40 few years ago.
How many years ago?
40 few. It'll be 45 this year, 45. Unfortunately, a fellow classmate, a girl, was killed, and another girl was so severely injured she's crippled for life. And
At that intersection?
At that intersection. And we have always been used to going around the curve and seeing either a car in the field or a set of tracks. And when that application came before the planning board, I was very insistent that no houses be built near that curve. For that reason, because I thought that would only make things worse. But during all that process, and unfortunately, my son lost his '55 Chevy in that curve, and my cousin a brand new car. So, and nobody was going fast, because all the problems, I guess all the accidents, whatever, that road becomes so slick, and you don't have to be going fast, because once you lose that road, get off the road, the pavement, there's no chance of you having control. And they were very good to my Donald because he wasn't gonna, it was pouring rain, and the then owner of Our House Tavern sloshed through the field to pick up the pieces of his '55 Chevy front end before Donald would go in and let them treat him. So he was very good. But I had several conversations between being on the planning board and having lived in the area and knowing the problems. And a prior owner of Our House Tavern made many complaints to the county. And consequently, before and after Donald lost his Chevy there, and thank God wasn't seriously hurt, his opinion, and I think he had a private engineer look into it, was that if you soften the curve and move the road over and used what's now open space, and if it saves a life, let's give up that open space. To make that, move it over, that would be to the south.
Can you hold that thought for 1 second, Mrs.
Sure.
Smith? Mayor, if I may. Mr. Nunziato, it comes to mind that the township, the county had done some deliberating on changing that before the development went in on the Rapp Farm, but I think something went on there that made it not happen. Is that correct? Do you recall that?
There was some discussions as to the county had not endorsed the plan that is currently, well, has been built. And there was some discussion about realigning that roadway, which...
To alleviate this situation.
That did not take place. It was sort of a compromise plan.
But are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If the theory was that if the curve was softened, it would, and then as you came around the curve, you wouldn't go off the road, because that's where the road would be, and it would also do away with that damaged road from oil or whatever from other accidents, whatever makes it so slick. So I'm wondering, since we do have that, we gained some open space there. Some of it we gave to the county along the river. And what's along the road is, I believe, still under the control of the township because it was a cluster. It was a development. They took us to court and we compromised because between the 6-acre zoning and whatever houses they could put there. We compromised right in the middle and we got some open space. And to continue the open area along the river, the county got that, but I think we're still in control, and I'm just wondering if we could propose to the county. As I said, it's worth saving a life to give up a little open space, and you know how greedy I am about open space, but it would be, I think it would be very helpful, and might eliminate all the things that have happened all these years.
Good.
And I will speak to you, Eugene, if you want, offline. I think I've made my point on that.
Okay.
I wonder if I could ask Mr. Bongiovanni a further question about what he read about the motions.
Go right ahead, please.
Okay. Understanding what you read, I just want to make sure I understand clearly, but I always thought that if a motion was on the floor, you couldn't make another motion, and you talked about the only way to counter, so to speak, the call to question is to make a motion. Now, to me, that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, that's actually what the rules of parliamentary procedure do permit, and also our ordinance, which actually, if it were in contradiction to the rules, they would have to take precedence. You can, it says specifically, when a question is presented and seconded, it is under consideration, and no motion can be received thereafter except to adjourn, to lay on the table, to postpone, or amend until the question is decided. So it's just not,
So
it's just,
that's
yeah.
an exception to
Yeah,
the rule
right,
about not being able
right,
to make another motion.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, what I wanted to say, so I won't take up a lot of time. I didn't take the time to comment. I'm going to smack you. I'm going to get somebody to help me stand up on a chair, and I'm going to kick it in the knee. Excuse me, I didn't mean to be fresh. He teases me, and I'm teasing back. The Halls Mills Road extension has been in the works for a long time. The money was even approved. I think Howell Township has to stay involved and stay interested. We, the taxpayers on county and state level, put up a lot of money for the whole extension, the cut from 79 all the way over to Route 9, and that was supposed to be a truck route. I'm sorry that people bought along in their development the freehold township side of Adelphia Acres. I always get Adelphia Acres. And I'm sorry that they are not going to like trucks going by, but they should have known that before they recently bought that new development, because that was part of the approval.
Didn't
that go through there.
Didn't have Nanian tell them?
I believe legally he should have. I can't say whether or not he did. I wasn't there. But again, at the planning board approvals, he took us to court for some ridiculous reasons. But again, there was a compromise, or the judge ordered us to put any reasonable stipulation, and he would approve it. And he approved the closing of what they now named Spyglass Drive or something in Howell Township because of the proximity to Adelphia and Wyckoff Mills Road and the light and all the traffic and the curve, so that when that goes straight through, Spyglass Road should be closed. And I would appreciate very much, for the safety of the world that travels through there, that you make sure that they do as the council and stand up and protect us. Now, there was, I'm sure it's been related to you, and I believe Bill Nunziato went to the meeting about it, but I didn't hear any discussion about a fourth proposal, and that's to do nothing, and that wouldn't be good for anybody. Please, for the sake of everybody, but you speak for the people of Howell Township, speak up and use your voices to say that that should go straight through for everybody's safety and be completed, because it's not safe the way it is now.
It's a mess.
Ms. Nunziata, did you go to the meetings?
Yes, it was Wednesday, January 24th in the evening. And at that time, the county and their consultants had three versions of a Halls Mills realignment. One actually was a do-nothing. One was a plan to take Halls Mills and soften it somewhat, and the third was even more extreme, where they would actually cut a swath right through Rutgers, the extension, which was a more aggressive type proposal. At this point, it was a scoping meeting where they had open to the public. They had forms where you could fill out, put your comments in. And again, Ms. Dixell was there, and we had filled out some paperwork and expressed some of the concerns of Councilwoman Showmaker and your concerns about coming down the hill and the speeds. And actually, they are receiving comment, I believe, until the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who do we contact? And do you know who in the county we would contact with comments?
I have paperwork in my office. I
You
can.
have paperwork in
I
your
can
office?
forward it to everyone, yes.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to ask anything further about the application and why and what we heard, I will take up your time now, but I'm always available. Just give me a call or yell when I'm out here.
Thank you, Mrs.
Oh,
Smith.
you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Don Smith. Come on up, Mr. Smith. Good evening.
Don Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. Something totally unrelated, but something's been bothering me around here for a long time, and the last planning board meeting really brought it to a head. The use of cell phones in this main meeting room. At the planning board meeting, the last planning board meeting, I think Mike Howell knows that constantly in the audience there were people's cell phones going off. Very disturbing, to say the least. I mean, it brings the whole discussion before the board to a halt while somebody's phone is going off. I wonder if we couldn't, it shouldn't be necessary, but evidently it is, in the opening statement for every meeting, tell people, remind them, turn off your cell phones. You know, they weren't the citizens per se, they were mostly applicants, attorneys, or engineers. If they don't have enough sense to turn off their cell phone, I mean, and you know that how it disrupts the, especially the radio received signal through the handheld. I think you know what I'm getting at. One other quick thing, just to tie on to what Pauline was saying about that Halls Mills Road connection. One of the advantages, when that's put through, that will alleviate a lot of traffic on Wyckoff Mills Road, because that will tie directly into Route 9 at that jug handle. That was always the plan, and how Freehold Township or the county has stalled it for so long, I don't know. When people talk about, well, we're sorry about the trucks are going to be interfering with those people's lives, I don't know whether Mr. Hovnanian told those people, but they should have been, yes. But that's not our responsibility. That was Freehold Township, their planning board, and Mr. Hovnanian when he built that setup. But that's the way it was planned at that time. That development in Freehold Township was done in accordance with the proposed alignment of Howell Road, or of Halls Mills Road. And we need that. That's all I have. But
Thanks.
take care of the cell phone business.
I'll ask
please.
I'll remind Chairman Schneider, and I'll certainly begin to do the same, Mr.
Oh,
Smith.
yeah, I thought it's just, if it's read in by the secretary when the opening statement is read, that would probably be the time.
Okay. Okay, I think, Mr. Reculia, you have some other gentlemen, Mr. West and Sean Golden. You gentlemen like to come on up? Welcome.
Mara Reculia, 358 Squonkam Yellowbrook Road.
Steve West, 745 Holston Corner Road. Sean Golden, 14 Johnny Drive.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody? Well, haven't seen you all in a while. We're here on behalf of North Howell Little League. Just a quick timeline. Back in November, we made a presentation to the Rec Advisory Committee, a proposal as far as putting lights on 2 of our fields. It was approved by them. They were to put together a letter of recommendation and send it to the council, which Chairwoman Michelle Flaherty said she did do in December. And I think in January's meeting, Councilman Walsh, who's the liaison to the council, you said you hadn't received it yet, and I think you were going to look into it.
I haven't seen anything about it. I knew about lights from speaking with Mr. Dunshee.
Right, and again, at
you.
we spoke about it at the Rec Advisory.
We did get,
You got a packet.
we got correspondence. It was received.
Okay.
The Recreation Advisory Committee gave us their endorsement with respect to your project, was received by the clerk. We all got copies. And it indicated the Rec Advisory Committee fully supported and endorsed.
Okay.
At one of their meetings, more recently, the whole concept of lights, and they're with you 100%.
Okay. Well,
I didn't receive it, though. And you and I did speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't, did everybody else receive it, or?
I don't recall.
I never saw anything.
Neither did
Yeah,
I.
maybe we got it toward the end of the year. Maybe it was prior to...
Maybe it was in the
maybe
prior
it was prior to the
council
election.
person
But I
said,
know we got it was a
Okay.
memo. Do you know what I'm talking about, Mr. Schlegel?
Yes, I do. There was a memo that came from the Rec Advisory Committee.
Do you know when that was?
It may have been late December.
It had to be in December, yeah, because we
It
met.
may have been December. It may have been before the
Could you
council
check and make
changed.
certain everyone
Absolutely.
in the council gets a copy of it?
I will.
No problem.
Yeah.
Didn't receive it.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Mr.
well, we're up against a bit of a timeline here with that, and obviously some other issues with the building, and I have Sean Golden here, he's going to be assuming the role of our Director of League Operations at this point, so I'm going to kind of let him take over, and of course, Steve West, you all know Steve West, the Vice President of the League, and we'll be going back and forth and just bringing you up to date on some of the progress that we've made with the building and go into the light situation a little further. So if you'll bear with us, thank you.
Go right ahead. Mr. Goldman.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. First, I apologize if some of the council members didn't get the letter in question. Hopefully we can get them a copy. But at least I'll take this opportunity to brief you on the lighting project and any of your concerns that you may have, and Steve will brief you on the building. Along those lines, before I start, I'd really like to thank the council and the administration, Helene and Thomas and George Cravat. I know they have numerous projects going on within the township, and our building is happen to be one of them, and we appreciate their hard work, and when we get to that point, we'll talk a little bit about the building. The Rec Advisory Committee, as Mauro elaborated, approved or was in favor of us conducting lighting. We went ahead and contacted Musco Lighting for field lighting, and they've done some fields here in Howell Township. We're in current contract negotiations, and I guess what we were looking for from the committee, assuming that you had received the letter that the Rec Committee had passed on, was your approval, one, to go forward with the project of the lights as a courtesy, and two, we run into a slight problem. We're at a crossroads, if you will, with the building, and Steve West will get into this. As Helen knows and Tom knows, we're doing, the township is installing electrical and plumbing and so forth with the building. The question comes into the electrical service that is meant for the building. The crossroad, or the question we have is this. Currently, the building, if outfitted with the electrical service proposed, would not meet our requirements for the additional electricity that we would need to operate the lights for the field. The lights for the field, this is one of the questions we wanted to get resolved prior to going ahead, obviously, and with contract negotiations with Musco, and any approval we would need by the planning board, which was my second question was, do we go before the planning board? Obviously, there is an improvement upon the field. Mr. Pincus alluded to the support of the township with regards to recreational facilities, and we certainly do appreciate that, and you've been supportive with the building project, and we hope you continue your support with the lighting project. Along those lines, just for Mr. Pincus, the league is willing to fund those the lights, the contract with Musco, so the league will be funding the lighting project itself. The question and concern here is the electrical service into the building. The service proposed is one that will not sufficiently supply, if you will, the electrical light, our lights, the field lighting. So I guess the question before the committee would be, one, if we can gain your support for the lighting project, and two, if we can kind of take a look at the service before it's installed. Helene and Tom will probably give us a better timeline of when that was going to be. But again, we're coming up on opening day. Obviously, we're planning and organizing, and we just kind of want to get a feel if that the increased electrical service will be something that would be in support of by the Township Committee.
You have an idea, I'm sorry.
Please, go ahead.
Can you give us some ideas of cost?
Can I make a statement on that? I believe...
Mr. Reculli, just, if you don't mind, if you could come back up to the microphone.
With our original agreement that we had settled on, I guess back in November, December, whenever it was, with council, where the township was going to fund the project up to, I think the figure was $140,000. This would fall within that 140, I think, quite easily. So we wouldn't, and again, we're paying that money back to the township in the form of a lease payment every year. So again, it's not an additional tax burden on the taxpayers of the township. That was important to you guys, that was important to us. We can afford to do it, and we won't, you know, and we believe this will fall within that $140,000.
Okay. You have a comment, Mr. Trinesky?
George, I think, has the figures. I don't know if you have any updated figures on that.
Yeah, our initial review is that it would fall within that 140, but just to remind council, the policy direction to the staff was just to get the building operational. So when this issue came up, I thought it was incumbent upon North Howell Little League to ask council to consider this issue in light of that policy direction that was given to us.
Sure.
Mayor.
Go right ahead, sir.
How much additional is it going to cost to upgrade the electric?
The understanding from Buildings and Grounds is it's about $25,000 difference.
And 25,000 brings it under the 140 that we spoke about back in, it was either October, November.
I can tell you definitively on Tuesday. I wasn't prepared to, you know, I wasn't aware that we were going to discuss this in great detail, but I can get back to you when we meet again on Tuesday on a specific.
Can I just say, if by chance it didn't, we would be happy to put up whatever the difference was. We need that service. It's the future of our league.
I'm not.
You know, every other league in town has it. We just want to bring ourselves up to the same standards that.
If I may, Deputy Mayor, I believe that the question is do we pay for a service now that is inadequate and we will have a hard time obtaining lights, or do we pay a little extra now and then have the availability, obviously, to light the fields? Central is lit, South is lit. I think the inevitability of the fields being lit, you know, is a good probability that would happen. If not this year, maybe in the future. And I believe this is what I call crossroads, where you know, a little additional funding, and I say a little, but it's within the, you know, if it's within the $150,000 or $140,000 range that we had spoke of, and that was appropriated for the project, would save additional costs to the township having to run an additional service in at some future date.
Mayor, just to clarify the questions, are you, and we'll go back to, we'll use the bypass as an example of wasteful spending. When we were talking about the bypass, I originally asked, why don't we lay in water and sewer, or at least water out in that area when the roads were being dug up? This is a similar situation. We're throwing money, good money away. But my question is, to clarify this, your intent was always to have, you know, to have lighting there. What is the question? What are we questioning here? The service that was approved? Do they need to go back for reapprovals to increase the service, or what is it? The point?
Mr. Chinesky, go ahead.
Thank you. The gentlemen are correct that we're sort of at a crossroads because we are now in a process of ordering electrical service to run the building. But it makes economic sense that if you're going to order this from PSC&G, that you do it in one shot.
Absolutely.
So there will be an added cost to someone if they want to do this after the fact.
But not to interrupt you, but my question is, if it's coming in under the $140,000 that they were allotted, do they have to have approvals from us on each line item, or were they? I thought it was an overall unit of, this is what you have to do with, we're going to bring this building up to usability, and if that was the case, would you consider this a no-nonsense thing because it's lighting that's not going to be used now?
Well, it was the the direction I was given is make the building operational.
Right.
And this has to do with items ancillary to the building.
That's right, okay.
Along those lines, if I may, the league has made every effort, and we continue to have volunteers to save money on the building, i.e. Painting the walls, sealing tiles, and so forth. So wherever we can pitch in, we have tried to do so, obviously to keep that number under the 140. And I think in the meetings with Helene and Thomas and George Cravat, they can attest to that same thing, that we as much as we can do on our own or as volunteer organization, we have tried to do to save some of that cost and keep that number down under that $140,000 range. And hopefully it will pay off for us in the fact that we can get a little bit of the bigger service. There's service going into the building, it's just the size that's in question.
Mayor, if I may, one more time. I remember, I go all the way back from when I sat on council for Parkside lighting. A little different. I think it would be extremely foolish of the council to not even suggest that we encourage you to get the appropriate power that you need to that building overall, to look at the overall picture of what your plans and intents are, just much like you would do for a home. And I think it would be incumbent upon this board to encourage you to do so, because later down the road, it is going to be maybe double the cost.
Yeah, essentially what will happen is that North Howell Little League will be paying for an inadequate service, and then North Howell Little League is going to have to pay again to have the proper service ran into the building.
Mayor, if I could.
Please go right ahead, sir.
What was the service that was originally spec'd for, what was the amperage of the service that was originally spec'd for the project?
On the original drawings, it was 600 amps.
Single phase.
No, 600 amp,
It would have
three-phase.
to be three-phase.
The original plans.
All right, and now you're going up to what?
No, what was happened is the town agreed to get the building up and running, but up and running without the future for lights.
All right, so this was already, this was in your original specs, the 600 amp service?
Correct.
Correct.
Because I was just trying to justify the additional, the 25, and I'm looking at the bid that we're given, the quote that we received tonight for an 800 amp service is, soup to nuts is 28. So I thought if you were upgrading something from a 4 to a 6, I was just trying to justify the 25. But it absolutely makes sense, as Mrs. Schumacher said. Get the bigger lines in there now. And it would even be my sense that right now you want to light 2 fields. And when I was up there with you, you're wanting to do, I'm sure, the 2 main ones by the building?
That's correct.
But if at some other point in time it's your desire to light other ones, get the bid now, find out now if, hey, look, instead of going 6, why don't we go to 8?
Well,
It's going to cost us $1,000 more, do it now.
Right, well, the additional service, the power that we propose, or that was on the original drawings, there is enough power to light the whole facility.
For lights on all of your fields?
The 600 amps is enough to light all the facility.
Okay.
That's
And,
correct. We had Musco take a look at that. They ran some figures, and they said, yeah, that service would be enough to run the whole facility
So-
if we
so-
chose to do the additional fields
So
at a
the
later
question
date.
really for the council, to your point, Mr. Chinesky, is you want policy direction, or I take it some concurrence, that to Mr. Ruculio's observation, this falls within, and Mr. West has pointed it out, this falls within the original anticipated budget amount. It does make sense from a long-range perspective, rather than have to go back and revisit this at a later date. And provided it does fall within the original budget amount, does anyone have an objection, comment, or a concern on this point? Mrs. Dalton, you?
I'm a little, because I'm new, so I'd like to understand the difference between why you're paying for the lights yourselves, but why the town.
You're not paying for it. We're paying for the additional 140,000. The town has loaned the money to Little League or bonded for it.
I wouldn't use that language.
I'll let Mr. Chinesky explain it to you, all the details.
Yeah, actually, loan is it's not what we're doing. What we are doing in very simple terms is we made an initial appropriation to acquire the building. This goes back about 2 years, perhaps,
Yes.
where once the building was built, if it and I forget what the dollar amount was. I think it was
150,000.
150,000. If it was assessed for greater than that, the township would buy the building for the $150,000. The original plans for the building were amended, and the building came in significantly higher than what North Howell Little League had anticipated. Much of that had to do with building code requirements and such, once a licensed architect was on board. North Howell Little League then approached the council about increasing that 150 by another, I think, I forget exactly what the amount was at this point.
140.
It may have been even more than that, because what happened then was council gave me direction to come up with an estimate for what it would take simply to make that building operational. So that's why I think it was slightly more than the 140. So we came up with 140, and it was provided for in last year's capital budget. So we are now in the process, as a matter of fact, we're currently in the advertising phase for all the equipment and supplies we would need simply to make that building operational. What that means is that we're not finishing the second floor. As a matter of fact, we're closing off access to the second floor. We're just doing a fire suppression, restrooms, get the kitchen operational, lights, HVAC type things. And so based on the direction I was given, the electrical system is simply enough to power those internal operations. What North Howell agreed to, and it's in no way to be considered a loan or anything like that, but in light of the expense that was incurred by the township, North Howell Little League agreed that for a period of time they would give us a percentage of their revenue from the concession stand that would come into the township's miscellaneous revenue account through an amended lease agreement on the building. But again, that should not in any way be construed as a loan or a lease or anything along those lines.
Can I say something, Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Walsh. Certainly.
So the 140,000 that we allocated last October, November, to make this building functional, doing this electric, it's got to come in under that number.
As I said previously, I'm not sure of that. I would let you know on Tuesday.
Okay.
But what Mr. Racuglia said was that they would agree to fund the difference.
So we will not have to put out more than 140,000. Is that a correct answer, Mr.
No.
Chernetsky?
That would be
I
council's decision.
Such a good thing has caused some anguish in this community. Let's get that field lit and put this puppy to bed.
Yeah, are there any additional comments or concerns?
No, I'd just like to make a comment. I just want to thank you for coming forward, and because you have been on very informative with the council on matters as they come up. And I want to thank you for that, because it's really been an open dialogue, and it's made it much more pleasurable than it was in the past.
Thank you very much. And just one other thing, thank you for straightening us out on our crossroad and pointing us in the right direction, Council. Also, the planning board or the zoning board, and maybe this is an administrative question, but there are no, I don't think, land use issues. So the only thing is the improvement, which is the lights. Is that something that has...
Electrical permit. I believe it's just an electrical permit.
Permittation then for...
With the, under the municipal land use law, any capital improvements to municipal land, and it is municipal land, need to go to the planning board for their review and consideration. It's not a site, it's not a detailed site plan. You know, you don't get into, it's basically just to see how things fit. And typically towns have a recreation master plan, which the planning board develops, so as these facilities come online, like lighted fields, they know to inform their planning process. So it's not a very specific type of procedure.
Mr. Howell, you want to correct?
Mayor, if I could, do you guys already have plans?
We do.
The light stanchions and everything?
We have plans and diagrams and electrical and so forth from Musco Lighting that we can present, surely present in the interest of the public land use and the public in general. We can present those before the planning board.
Mayor, if, I know that it was your recommendation last year that entities such as the Little League or the ambulance squad or the fire department get preference on the planning board schedule. So I would just ask that if it comes from here, or if we could ask Mr. Chernetsky to get a hold of Mrs. Capitan so that we can get you on as quick
That's-
as possible, so that you're not held up, getting your contracts finalized, because I think what you're gonna have to do is go to the planning board because of the light standards, the height, because there's height ordinance, you're gonna need probably some, variance
No, no.
for the light height.
No.
Okay. So, yeah, it's,
So can we, to Councilman Howell's point, and it's a good one, could we, maybe through your office, Mr. Janeski or the clerk, just have Ms. Capitan get the league scheduled for the next available meeting, put them right up front, put them right first? We could probably dispense with their business in just a matter of minutes.
Sure. What we typically do is, when we have a number of capital improvements, we bring them at once. So we'll be bringing that with the Freewood Acres Park.
Do you have a sense of when that would be to give these gentlemen a timeline? Soon? This Thursday?
No. But soon. That's all I'm committing to, soon. Mayor, lastly, if I may, just, recalling some of the issues that went on last time, I think the gentlemen are to be commended for,
Absolutely.
acknowledging the role of the Recreation Advisory Committee as the chief policy advisor to you on improvement items. They are charged with looking out for our parks and facilities and planning their improvements, so it's good that they went through them.
And before we just take a quick call to question, in the spirit of full disclosure, my son plays in a league and I coach. Anyone have a problem with me voting?
No.
Okay. As certain people that have been on the council can attest, it was a point of contention, so just in the spirit of candor, I want to just fully disclose it. Couldn't be a better
Well,
league.
I'd like to know, Mr. Cooley, how good a coach is he?
I was only an assistant coach last year. I think this year I'm going to be a manager. When the team stones me, then we'll find out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right, he didn't do so well throwing out the open
My
pitch.
little guy's
last
got a
time.
better arm, thank goodness.
Mayor, if I could just
Schlegel
ask
gets
him-
to throw out the first pitch. She goes up there like Roger Clemens, throws an 80-mile-an-hour curveball smack over the plate, and then she tosses me the ball like, here you go, kid, in front of 250 people, and I think I barely reached home plate. Oh, you're good.
Mayor, if I could just, when do you guys need to have the contracts, and just so we can try to get an urgency number to Mrs. Capitan, because
At this point in time, it's pretty urgent. Right now, the plumbing is 90% complete, and we're looking to get it inspected. And I spoke with Mr. Gravatt today down at the Public Works Department. So the partition walls in the bathrooms are going to be up and running, but we're going to need power for lights, and opening day is April 1st.
Musco gave us an original delivery date of March 12th. Obviously, that's going to be pushed back. We'd like to see the lights up by opening day.
All right,
So if it's possible that we could get this.
ma'am, I think my point would be that I believe they have to advertise, so that would be a 10-day time frame in the paper. correct? Or they don't even have to do that.
It's simply,
Have it on the agenda.
it's simply,
formality.
it's a municipal parks project. It's not a development application. Maybe that's the way to look at it. It's not a
Isn't it just-
development application.
Isn't it just considered a capital review?
That's it.
If I might also add to that, there's businesses in the area, there's only one residence directly across the street, and
Right.
if you wanted me to go knock on their door and bring a letter to the planning
Mr.
board, I would do
Chinesky,
that as well.
So that, to Mr. Howell's point, if there's some time urgency, we're not
Bring a
certain
few-
when you're ready
few with
to
me.
to go to the planning board on your other project. Maybe you could just have Ms. Capitan get them on as quickly as we can, get them on, get them off, and we can be finished with
And we
all
have a
this.
good relationship with them. They utilize our parking lot when they have family functions and things like that. So.
Any other questions for these gentlemen?
I believe we have 3 planning board meetings between now and the 12th of March, so if we can get you on before one of those 3, you can still have your delivery date on the 12th?
Well, it's already been pushed back 2 weeks on us, so.
We'll work on it.
Would you
We'll make
foresee
sure
any
we get you
problem? I
on.
mean, what problem could we run up against?
We got to get you
You
on the
never
agenda.
know.
Can't answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either.
I
That's
don't know.
Frankly,
I
planning
haven't-
board approval is not even required. It's
Right.
planning board
It's a
review.
consideration,
Right, it's just
yeah.
a
Yeah,
All right.
so we can move forward within appropriation.
So Mr. Chunetsky's office will talk to the planning board, we'll get you scheduled appropriately.
Okay.
And any other issues, you gentlemen know, Mr. Chunetsky's had an open door policy. if you run into any interruptions.
I
let us
hate to
know.
bug him. I wouldn't want his
Yeah.
life.
Let
It's
me in
charmed.
today.
All right, why don't we just, from a formality perspective, I'd ask that we just, someone make a motion to approve the amended plan with respect to electric for Mr. Chernetsky's benefit for the file.
So moved, Mayor.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
I have a question on the,
Go right
on
ahead.
the motion, and that is so long as it's limited to the township's outlay is capped at 140,000.
That's correct, and they'd have to make up any difference.
Right.
You agree, Mrs. Showmaker?
Absolutely.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
council.
Good season.
Get that field lit up.
Is there anyone that came in late that perhaps didn't see the sign-in sheet that would like to be heard tonight? Anyone would like to be heard tonight?
Motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
Seeing no one else, Mr. Chernetsky, is there any other business?
No, sir.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Drive
Meeting
safe,
adjourned.
everybody.
Drive safe.